Guys, have I got a tip for you today? And I'm going to try my best not to go too long because it's in depth and it's something very useful that we will move forward with in permaculture design. But we just had Patterns Day this last weekend in our permaculture design course, and it got me thinking about some things in permaculture, just kind of observing what's been going on. And we're at a very unique and interesting position. I mean, we talk about some of the ethics like land care. We're at a point in time where, we've got, a camp over here that does X in, say, hydrology of landscape, and a camp over here that does Y. And then Y is, says, camp X sucks, and so, never do something like that. And then they try to ruin their reputation on it because of a variety of reasons. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's nothing new. If look at the amazing things that the civil rights movement had done, and unbeknownst to many people, they had issues, backstabbery, jealousy within Martin Luther King's camp. So I mean, this is not a new thing, and I've really come to the realization that the reason a lot of this happens is because nobody ever gives you any training of mental and emotional, not only awareness, but intelligence, and hopefully maturity at some point. So to understand that, again, is to understand pattern. Just like there's, pattern, that 7 layers, minimum of 7 layers of a forest, or how large herding animals migrated over the landscape, and that these patterns. There's also mental frameworks, a mental pattern to your brain on most doctors or psychologists would call a healthy range. If you're out of that healthy range, it's like going into like being a sociopath, or on the other side, like a Down syndrome. So what I'm going to propose today, this framework won't connect to those, out of that kind of healthy range. And the cool thing is, like, most of us, like 99.9998% of us are in that healthy range. So here is that framework. And the reason I'm introducing this, like we do in Patterns Day, is because if we really want to boost people care, because look, let's just be honest, permaculturists, we preach it, we don't do it, right? Matter of fact, a lot of people preach people care and all that, and it's just not done. And like I said, the reason it's not done because nobody's given us any training. So here is some training, at least a framework, so you can wrap your head around it and continue to do it. So be the change you want to see, or however you want to look at it, it's going to start with you. So here we go. So it starts with a belief. And I don't mean so much a belief as like a faith-based belief, but a belief like, say, instance, this wall right here is green, and this one's a lighter shade of green. And that tree that's drawn on here is a shade of brown. So I have a belief. So that belief, right, the belief, here it is, it creates a thought, right? Now the thought alters how I feel. And my feelings dictate my behavior. And it's my behavior which other people experience. And then we get like a feedback loop. So they experience something, then they respond, and then, then we have a belief about that, and it kind of cycles over and over again. So what this really states, if you want to change not only the experiences with other people, which is important, but if you want to change how you feel, it starts with changing your thinking, actually. It doesn't have to go back to changing your beliefs. Like, I don't have to, lie to myself and say it's not a certain shade of green. So this is easy to understand, right? Now that we've got a framework, belief creates thoughts, which alter how I feel, which then dictates my behavior, and that's what other people experience, right? So if we want to, have any kind of influence over our own feelings and our own thinking, it does start at the thought level. So here's the problem, right? We understand the framework. There it is right there. It's a good teaching. It's from CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. It's really amazing stuff. And matter of fact, all kids, I believe, should just as they should learn gardening and the whole systems to that, learn how to handle their emotions. We don't have any emotional training in the United States. Matter of fact, we're probably in part of our school at a later date. We're going to have some type of emotional training program that we add to it, because people care is in its infancy. Matter of fact, take these teachings and others like it and go write books, because nothing is happening almost in people care except people being very angry about social injustice. Which, don't get me wrong, there is social injustice. It is something to get angry about. But then what? Just the same deal. You get upset with the politicians about, taxing you or whatever for water. But then what? Go learn permaculture. And both ways here. Learn permaculture here for these things that do irritate you. So how do you make this change? Well, it's work. It really is. So if you want to change your thinking, it's an active process. Now, here's where we can use the problem as a solution. You have cell phones. I mean, I've been all over the planet. Everybody has a cell phone, right? And most people have smartphones nowadays. So you can put in your smartphone some reminders every hour, every 30 minutes, every 2 hours, right? Believe it or not, for the majority of my life, I've battled with huge self-worth issues. So, for instance, to get my own thinking changing, I mean, I put it on my smartphone, like, anybody who's been in my class will giggle, but every hour say, I am awesome. You know what I mean? It's not just positive thinking. I'm literally rewriting code in my brain, neural networks and pathways in my brain, right? So, it's work at first. You got to consistently remind yourself. We can use technology, but you got to continue to do it, right? They say after 21 days, we're going to go further than that. Do it for a long time, 6 months. So what you're doing is you've got this network of thinking already in your brain, and it could be negative. It probably is. And so negative thinking is about as good for you as eating McDonald's French fries. But it happens, and I've had negative thinking my entire life, and it's affected every one of my relationships, not only romantically, but in business or friends or whatever. And so in order to change that, I first had to make an observation that, hey, this is messing with my quality of life, So I had to, make a recognition first, and then create a boundary. And then when these things happened again in my brain, I'd start thinking negatively. I had to figure out, which way to go. So it created, I had to go learn a framework, which is the one that we had just discussed, and then how to change it. So we've got these thoughts, and it's just like breathing to us. The brain just does them. It's unconscious. And they're very firm. It's like a friggin' super highway in the brain. So we have to literally get out like a mental machete. And where it's not a highway, we look over here into the brush, and we have to start hacking away at it. And that's that cell phone deal reminding you every hour. It's the consistent reminding yourself to go down a certain pathway where you could see the end goal is a place where you want to be. Okay? So you start hacking that away, and you got to do it consistently every time you wake up before you go to bed. And you can use, like we had mentioned earlier, the technology to help you. So eventually, as you start hacking through, you finally get to that point. But when you look behind you, it's already starting to regrow again, right? So you've got to continue to go back and forth through this pathway that you've just cut through, or it won't stick. That's why, yes, 21 days, it creates a habit or whatnot, but go longer than that. You got to continue going and continue using that pathway, because then it concretes itself into a sidewalk, and then later on an asphalt road, and then later on a highway, and then a super highway of its own. And then that negative thinking that you had over here ends up being reforested and taken back over in the brain. And so it becomes then work to go back down those pathways that you didn't want to go to. And it's a lot easier to go down the pathways that are much healthier for your thinking, which then change the way you feel, which then we get to the essence of people care, right? Once you change how you feel, got a different outlook on things, then your behavior, with others starts changing. Then we can really get into like people care, right? We first got to start, the prime directive of permaculture. Take responsibility for your own existence and that of your children's, and do it now. This is your own mental responsibility, right? And this is the first bit of training. I shouldn't say the first. This is a bit of training that's happening. So you can take that responsibility, and then you can really get into helping people, which is, most permaculturists, are on that framework there, to help people. So, bam, there it is. I love you guys. You're awesome. Matter of fact, say it right now. I'm awesome. We'll see you later.